All right, we're on our second of two videos for session number 7, and we're covering the module number 16, which is relevant costs. This is one of those very important managerial accounting chapters because it tells us how to sort out what items we need for the analysis and which ones are distractions, or worse than that, would lead you to the wrong decision. This is a series of very important topics and how to apply them. Learning objectives, number 1, are what are relevant costs and revenues. Number 2, how do we use them in decision making? Learning objective 3 is some scenarios. We're going to be going through 4 scenarios today and to apply a general approach to decision making, and then some specific examples on how to pick out the ones that are relevant and separate the ones that are not. And finally, how do we look at allocating limited resources? Because in all scenarios we're going to be deal with in our lives, I believe, we'll have some constraints. So how do we work within those constraints? Let's start with the notion that it's common sense. I know that you may have that and not believe it's common sense, but suspend disbelief for a moment and let's try this out. Let's do scenarios. First, you run a profitable business and it's not in financial distress, and you have 4 quarters or 4 years left in your lease. It's on your headquarters. Is that factor, the lease namely, is that relevant for this year's decision on advertising? So the question is simply a yes or no, and a why or why not. Hit pause if you want to just think about it for a moment. It's probably better if you do hit pause and think about it and see if you come up with the same conclusions. I'm going to continue in 1, 2, 3. All right, the answer is no. The lease is not relevant in this case because, first of all, the general idea is that anything that you cannot change in the future is not relevant, because whether you advertise or not, you pay rent. Whether you pay a lot for advertising or a little for advertising, you pay rent. So in other words, rent is irrelevant. One generalized approach we might think about it is relevant costs are in the future and they differ among competing alternatives. In this case, rent has nothing to do with advertising, even though it is future oriented. Second is that irrelevant costs are future, but they do not differ, and that's exactly the case here. We still have to pay rent. I get it. It's an expense, but for this decision on advertising, it is not a relevant item. All right, let's try number 2. You have an R&D team, and you spent $5 million so far on chasing a cancer cure. And now your PhD researchers come to you and say, we're not going to cure cancer, but we can cure dog acne, namely pimples. They said, well, we can finish the formulation, sell it for $1 million with another $200,000 this year, and there's no risk that we will not succeed this year. And let's say you believe them. So the question is, do we say yes or no to their proposal for another $200,000 on top of the $5 million you've already put into this project? And then why or why not? So again, if you want to play along here, hit pause and think about it. That's what I suggest. But if you're in a rush, just let it keep playing. So I'll give you a few seconds. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. The answer is yes. You should ignore the $5 million you spent. You're not happy about it because you're going to end up with a loss. But here's the thing. If you spend $200,000 and get $1 million, that's always a good decision. If you spend 0, you get 0. So I guess if you think of the 2 alternatives of spending 0 and making nothing, or spending $200 and netting $800,000, you'd say go ahead and solve pimples for dogs. All right. So there are ethical dilemmas here because managers, people in the points of responsibility, in this case making R&D decisions, will be tempted to say yes just to look good, because it's pretty hard to walk away from $5 million. But you need to be objective in decisions, and although it may make you look bad, it's sometimes best to cut off while the outcome is clear, rather than just pouring more what we call good money after bad. All right, let's do another one. Learning objective 1 still, but the third scenario is the same as above, but in this case, you have a chance to redeploy these brilliant PhDs on a very promising team to accelerate a cure for breast cancer, which could be worth billions of dollars to the company. So now what do? Again, if you want to think about it, hit pause. If not, I will go to the answer in 1, 2, 3. The answer is stop the project, don't chase dog pimples, and reassign the team, because this major opportunity could accelerate the development and possibly even increase the chance of success. This is the notion of opportunity cost. With every decision, not only are there past considerations, but there's an opportunity cost of what would happen if you did not do this. In this case, we have a choice for the researchers to either to do nothing, just sit there and collect a salary, or chase the research or complete the research on dog pimples and make it 800,000, or be redeployed and increase the chance of you achieving billions of dollars of drug sales. This is called an opportunity cost. It's what else you could be doing. A painful example is you. You have opportunity costs sitting where you are at this moment because you could be back home or in another country working and making money. So you are purposely foregoing making money by being a student at Hult. Your logical and hopefully well-reasoned idea is the degree is worth more than simply another year of working and making some money. And we hope this investment is a wise one, but that's what we're talking about. You sitting there are epitomizing opportunity cost because you could be working somewhere else. But you believe that your investment of time here will pay off, hopefully not in too many years, but will pay off in a better career and higher pay, etc. So opportunity costs are always relevant. The fourth scenario is you have an old steam-powered machine that is 100 years old, and it can be replaced with a modern, reliable, energy-efficient one for $1 million. Does the disposal value of this old machine matter? Again, if you want to pause and think about it, do so. If not, I will move forward in 1, 2, 3. All right, the answer is yes. It may not be $1 million antique, but it's important for you to know what can you get for disposing of the machine. So disposal values of equipment in decisions are always relevant. What we can see so far is that relevant costs, I hope you see, are common sense. First, relevant costs are future costs that differ among competing decision alternatives. Number two, sunk costs have been invested in the past and are not relevant for the future and should not be considered. Even though human nature makes it painful to ignore what has happened, you must set that aside because objectively you can't do anything about it and they're sunk. Third, opportunity costs are the benefits that you forego as a result of choosing one alternative in favor of the other, and they're always relevant. And fourth, disposal value of an asset that you're considering replacing is always relevant. It's part of the decision.